Hey, y'all. I know what you're thinking. Oh my God, not another podcast. And I agree. I'm typically that person that doesn't listen to podcasts either. But my name is Will Johnson, and I'm here to bring something a little different for you. This is the At Home-ish podcast, creating spaces where we belong. Welcome back to the At Home-ish podcast, creating spaces where we belong. This is now episode 13. As always, I want to thank you all for your support. Thank you for following. And I'm super excited for the guest I have here today. This young man, I see him all types of places where I go. Different events throughout the county, throughout the state. So I'm going to let him introduce himself real quick.
Thank you, Will. Thanks for having me. I'm State Senator John Lovick. I live in Mill Creek, and I'm happy to be here on episode 13. 13 was my favorite number because Will Chamberlain wore that number.
Oh, that is so awesome. So perfect timing with that. And I was going to ask you exactly where you live and where you come from. So you say you're living in Mill Creek now?
Yeah, I've lived in Mill Creek for about 35 years, but I'm originally from a little town called Robeline, Louisiana, in Natchitoches Parish, Louisiana.
Okay. Wow. When did you move up to the Northwest?
So I came here 54 years ago this month.
Mm-hmm.
It might be 54 years ago today. I was in the Coast Guard.
Oh, wow.
And after boot camp, they decided to send me to Seattle. And of course, I protested. And once I got here and saw the beauty that is Washington State, been here 54 years now.
Wow. Wow. You got me beat by almost double. I felt the same way. I've been in Washington now for almost 23 years. And this place is just so beautiful, and a lot of good people here too.
Yep.
Yeah. So you're in the Coast Guard. I don't think I knew that.
Yes, I served 13 years in the Coast Guard. I joined in 1970, went to basic training, and they give you a dream sheet and tell you to dream about where you want to go. And I dreamed about all of these other places, and then they laughed at you and said, "Remember, you're dreaming." And they sent me to Seattle, thinking they were maybe punishing me. It was the best decision that they could have made for me.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you ended up here, and thank you so much for your service. And so what was the role that you did when you were in the Coast Guard?
So I did a number of roles. So I think my number one thing that I enjoyed doing is I was a ship driver. That's the guy who drives the ship. Back then, we would have to plot courses and figure out where you're going and the speed you needed to go to get there at the right amount of time. But the Coast Guard is a life-saving organization for rescuing people. So
important.
My number one role was driving the ship.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what type of work did you do after that?
So as soon as I was honorably discharged from the Coast Guard, I started my 31-year career with the Washington State Patrol.
Okay.
I spent 31 years with the State Patrol. And while doing that, I decided to run for a seat on the Mill Creek City Council. Okay. And I won that seat. After that, someone convinced me to run for the state legislature, and they had to twist my arm very, very hard. And I think running for the city council, I was hooked into elective politics.
Okay.
So I served in the legislature for 9 years, and then I left for 9 years to become the sheriff, the elected sheriff of Snohomish County, and I was appointed county executive. I spent a few years there, and now I'm back in the state senate.
So you're a county executive for a period of time?
I was the Snohomish County executive for 2.5 years.
Okay. Well, you've done quite a bit in your career.
I know a lot of people look at me and they say you've done all of those things, and they say you can't keep a job. But I always tell them that I've managed to give me a break. I've managed to do okay. It's been a lot of fun. Service is my calling, and I absolutely appreciate it and love it.
Well, that's absolutely what it sounds like when I think back on the Coast Guard, the State Patrol, and the different elected positions. And clearly you leave an impact wherever you go. I still remember it's been, probably almost 3 years ago now when I first met you.
Yep.
And being newer to the area, I didn't even know who you were when you came in. And we were just talking, and you were so engaging, and your energy was like contagious. And I was like, who is this guy? And they're like, you don't know him?
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind, Will. You know what I learned a long time ago, if you're going to be in public service, everybody has to matter. You have to treat everybody like you know them. They might not know you, but they better think that you know them. And so I just learned that a long time ago, to just find a way to get the name of the person you're talking to, and in the process, maybe call their name and talk to them. And if their kids walk up and start talking to you, talk to them. And if you're in the store shopping, if you're in a restaurant eating, put that fork down, put that cup of coffee down and talk to people. And that's what I just learned being around a lot of people.
Yeah. And again, I feel that just really shows because I just felt so welcomed around you.
Thank you.
And that kind of even goes into, the theme of this podcast when we talk about creating spaces where we belong. And you kind of already answered it, but how does belonging show up in the work that you do?
So belonging has to be, first of all, you have to have the attitude that everybody belongs. Because I have been in situations in my life growing up in Louisiana, joining the Coast Guard, where I didn't feel that I belonged. It might not be everybody there, but I've always had one or two people who always took the time to make me feel welcome. And that's what belonging means to me. You have to take the time to let a person know that they are welcome, that they are welcomed in wherever you are, and make them feel like they matter to you. I had a situation happen to me many, many, many years ago. I was had been honorably discharged from the Coast Guard, and I was in the going to college, and I was on the GI Bill, and I hadn't received the check. And so I happened to call Senator Henry Jackson's office just to check to see how would I get my check. And I'm thinking it was just a blank call. A day later, I got a call from a person who said, "This is Senator Jackson. This is in 1974.
Oh, wow.
And I'm thinking, he called me. Here I was, enlisted man in the military. 2 days later, a car pulled up in front of my house, and it had the license plate G11, blah, blah, blah on it. And it was a government car, drove up and hand-delivered a check to me. And I walked away from there thinking, that's the way we should treat people. Let people know that you care about them. I didn't expect that. I could have waited another 3 or 4 weeks, but I just felt that I meant something to that U.S. senator. And I've always tried to take that to heart. That's the way I like to try to treat people.
That is such, I'm getting chills hearing that story. It's so powerful. And just the concept of paying it forward. And 1974 was a really good year. That was the year I was born.
Oh, good for you.
just hit 50 last week.
Good for you. So, happy 50.
So to think about 50 years ago, here's someone who was a senator and put that type of effort into making sure you had what you needed.
Yep.
That's awesome.
It meant a lot to me. Frankly, has impacted the way I've done things. And I shared that with his son, but it was the way I was treated. And I think whether we're treated well or not, find someone that we want to treat well. And that's why I like some of the things that are going on in Snohomish. So that's where it comes from.
Yeah, I do feel there's a lot of good stuff going on here in Snohomish. And, I often reflect on before I came to Snohomish 4 years ago, just some of the things that I saw in the news or was hearing about the community. And I just wasn't really sure what to expect. And me personally, I've had a great experience here. So
I have to tell you, after George Floyd was killed, and I don't know if this is something that will add to your experience. I came for a candlelight vigil one night on one afternoon, and I was walking on First Street, westbound on First Street, and I get down the sidewalk, and the sidewalk is blocked. And I'm thinking to myself, what could go wrong? There were only about 30 of us in this candlelight vigil. And there were 2 kids sitting there, and they were blocking the sidewalk with a table. And I'm thinking, what are they blocking the sidewalk for? And I said, well, what's going on? They said, this is food for you guys to serve to the people who are in this, walking in this parade. If that doesn't let you know that people matter in this, these were high school kids that just went out and bought peanuts and water, and they were serving people they didn't need to do that. It's those little things that we all need to do a little bit that makes a difference in the community. And I've always appreciated that.
Yeah, that's awesome, because I appreciate that perspective, your experience with it, because that wasn't what was on the news.
No.
It
wasn't. But what was on the news was also needed to be on the news. When you had people show up with guns, but at the same time, when we went a few blocks in one direction and turned and came back, a gentleman laid his rifle across the sidewalk on the other side of the street, and we had to walk around it. So you could look at what he did, which was really stupid, and you could look at what these kids did. What worked better? So yeah, the news told a story of the ugly things. But sometimes I think when you come to a city like this, I think there are times that we need to focus on the good, and those were the good things that were happening.
That's so amazing, because that's one of the things that when I think about the podcast, for example, I could absolutely harp on things that are negative or hurtful or harmful, but I want to really highlight the great people doing great things, the different activities that are happening in our community, because I think that's one of the things that really makes a difference. Not to hide anything that's negative, because we want to talk about that as well.
Right.
But highlighting the positive.
Yeah. I don't know if you were around for the Pride Parade. And I like to tell people I wasn't a good athlete in high school, but I played the trombone, and I was a pretty good trombone player. So I'm not here to try to toot my own horn, pardon the pun. But I marched in the Pride Parade last year, and I was telling friends that of all the parades that I've marched in, I marched in the Pride Parade last year, and I marched in the Pride Parade this year. I will never forget how wonderful it was marching in that parade, because it was like there were people who were standing there waving, cheering, enjoying, making people feel welcome. Those are the things that I think we should be focused on. Those are the things that we should talk about, because there are people that who will do anything they can to draw attention to themselves. But look at what this entire community, look at what this city does. Look at what our officers do by walking around, keeping people safe. Those are the positive things. And I'm glad you highlight and emphasize those.
Right. Yeah, I was in the Pride Parade both years that they've had it here. And similarly, just walking down the street. Well, let me back it up, because I think about walking down, it was Cedar, where they had all the vendors set up.
Yes.
And to see everyone there feeling free to be themselves and in this celebratory spirit it was awe-inspiring, you know?
It was.
And then when I walked down Cedar to First Street, and I was trying to figure out where the group that I was going to be walking with, where they were, and it was like, okay, there's parade participants here at Cedar, but then it went way back down the road, and like, how many guys? Like, we got like 70 something people here, 70 different entries in the parade. And when we finally started moving and we hit the hill at Union to go down, to just see all the people on the side of the road cheering, applauding, it was amazing.
It was amazing. I walked in both directions. I always like to come and park and then walk down the street just to see who I'm going to see. And then to get with my group and walk back. And I'm telling you, it was so inspiring. I tell people I've marched in many parades as a trombone player in high school, but nothing gave me just chills to my body.
Right.
Just how good I felt having people just wave and having people cheer. People that, honestly, I was shocked to see them. I saw one lady, she did something so polite and so respectful. Someone came up to her and tried to give her something that was anti this organization. And she did something that I wish I could have thought of this, but I wish I could have thanked her for saying it. She looked at it. She could have taken it, thrown it away. She looked at the piece of paper that the people were trying to give her, and all she said was, I think I'm better than that. How do you parse that? She didn't argue with them.
Right.
She just said, I think I'm better than that, because the message they were giving out was not very polite. And I just thought, there's a nice way, there's a kind way to be kind. And she just used the kindness of her soul, her heart, and her spirit to just be kind to them, and kept walking.
I think about, maybe I think it may have been Michelle Obama, but when they go low, we go high.
Yes. That was Michelle.
Okay.
Yeah. When they go low, you go high.
Right. And it's always so much better to take the high road.
It is.
Yeah. And even going back to what we're saying about that positive energy, there was this video that I've seen on social media a couple times where they have a glass, and the glass is like cloudy or murky water. And it's like, if you try to filter this, it will never become clean.
Wow.
You try to take out the negative, but if you fill it with clear water, the positive, the clear water actually clears out all the negative.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
That's great.
And so that's why I really, really work to try to put, more positivity out in the world, and not the high things that are negative, because we need to witness that and learn from it. But there's just so much more that's positive. I often talk with people about with working with the schools. We have, close to like 9,500 students. And in the 3 years that I've worked in the school district, I've only had to work with one-to-one situations a handful of times.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's like such a low percentage. Not saying that any of that's right, but the negative just seems to get so much more attention.
It does. And I noticed that in being in office, there are times that people want to focus on negative things.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always tried to, in my life and in my career, yes, there have been a lot of negative things that have happened. As much as I could, I've tried to focus on the good. Because sometimes you can keep the focus on the good. There's a great story about a school in Georgia, and I'm not sure which county it was in, but the graduation rate was like barely 35% year after year after year after year.
Mm-hmm.
And so they brought in a new principal, and the principal came in and he said he decided he wasn't going to change a thing in the school. A few teachers here maybe moved a slot here, moved a slot there.
Mm-hmm.
And a few years later, the graduation rate was approaching 80%.
Oh, wow. A big change.
And they asked, what happened? And he said, we focused on the good.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of kids coming to school every day, hearing that, your dad's in prison or you're from a single family, you're this, they focused on the good. If a kid missed school,
mm-hmm.
they would find someone who would take the time to call that kid. And when that kid showed up 3 days later, they would welcome him back. Keep the focus on the good, and those are the good things that I think we need to do. They kept the focus on the good. When that kid stepped on that school bus,
mm-hmm.
it was welcoming. When he stepped into that office, and that's what you are doing, and I hope you will continue to focus on the good, because the negative people are going to always be there. They're going to get all of the attention, but we need to let people know that there are some good things happening in the communities.
Absolutely. Well, you're making me reflect back on when I was a teacher in a high school behavior program. And some of these students had challenging experiences in school, maybe for whatever reasons didn't like school at that moment. But what I wanted to create for them was an environment where they wanted to come to school. And so just like you're saying, greeting them, whether they missed days or not. But it's
right.
like, hey, we're glad that you're here now,
Yep.
and let me help you in making sure that you're up to date, and making sure that we got work to them while they were out. But to harp on someone for something negative, I don't think really helps people to grow or be better.
It doesn't. It doesn't. And I've seen it time and time and time again. In my time in Olympia, even in the military, it was the positive things that made a difference. You can always, bad things do happen, and
Absolutely.
That's the world.
Yeah.
But then you can build off of those bad things and then focus on what are the good things that can come from this.
Yeah. And, I hope the people who are listening don't get the impression that we're trying to overlook any negative things, because my mind flipped to a little bit was, even in the conversations around diversity, equity, and inclusion, I have been to some trainings where it has been just highlighting all of the terrible things that have happened in history that we're aware of,
right?
And as we're talking about perhaps navigating change, which we do need in some sections for sure, I hadn't heard much about highlighting whether it's positive progress or how people have come together historically over these issues that have negatively impacted us. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. And because I know, when we talk diversity, equity, and inclusion, yes, it creates a different conversation for different people. But I think we have to keep having these conversations, because what I tell people this is I say that, I quote the great philosopher Yogi Berra when he said, people hate change and they hate the way things are. By that, what I mean is, I don't want to change anything.
Right.
I don't like the way things are, but please don't change it. Diversity, equity, and inclusion kind of forces us to say, let's look at what we're doing and see if change can make a positive impact on what we're doing.
Right. And, and what I take from that is, I think for some people, it's easy to keep things the same.
Yep.
Because they may not perceive negative impacts on them personally.
Exactly. Yep.
But then if we can really stop and look at society as a whole and say, how are people as a whole being impacted? And if there's anyone who's being negatively impacted by our actions, what can we do differently? What can we change?
I don't know if you ever watched a lady by the name of Indira Nooyi, and she ran the PepsiCo company. And she was talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I shared this with members of the state Senate.
Mm-hmm.
And when she talked about diversity, she said, diversity is just a numbers game.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, everybody, if you walk in and you could have blah, 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 they said, we're diverse. And she talked about equity.
Mm-hmm.
But what she said that really impacted me, and I think I was able to convince my colleagues in the state Senate, inclusion is a mindset.
Absolutely.
That's what inclusion is all about. It's that, we started the conversation talking about inclusion. It's the mindset. What's the mindset of you, your organization, and people in this organization? Diversity is just a numbers game. We just deal with the numbers. But that inclusion piece, we have to include people. That's the mindset. What's your mindset for the organization? What's the mindset for this city? What's the mindset for this business? And that's the conversations that I think are beneficial with having
absolutely
this diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Right. Because when I think about what you're saying with mindset, the opposite would be someone in some capacity saying, well, no, your voice doesn't matter, or you don't belong here.
Yep.
You don't deserve access to this. And so what good comes out of that?
That's exactly right.
To alienate people or groups of people.
No, it's a great point. It's a great conversation piece. And more than anything else, we are talking about it.
Right.
And we're having a conversation. And in the circle of friends that I run with, I'm having people talk about it.
Yes.
And if we're not talking, we're not getting anywhere.
Mm-hmm. That's what I often tell people when maybe I put on like a workshop or a training, and people are looking like, oh, wow, like, okay, this was heavy information. I'm trying to process it. What do I do with this now? And I tell them, it's like, continue the conversation. It's like, who are your people who are in your circle that you trust, that you can have difficult conversations with, and go and have that conversation and build your confidence and competence so that when you have to have a conversation with someone who may not be in your circle, you're able to do that.
Well, you know this better than anybody I know. We have to talk because if we're not having these conversations, we're not going to get there.
No.
The fact that we are having the conversation, forcing people to talk, and that's what I've heard. I've seen a lot of progress with people that I've dealt with because, when they started out, I'm sure you've put on many workshops, and I've watched people when I walk into those things, and I've watched diversity conversations. When people walk in, they go, oh, here we go again. Get my 2 hours in or get my 45 minutes in.
Right.
But the fact that we're having them talk about things, the fact that we're having them communicate, that's the only way we need to do it. That's the only way we're going to make any progress.
Yeah, and it's so concerning when I think about other places in the country where they're like basically trying to ban conversations or learning around this.
Yep.
And when I think about that, I remember a quote, and I'm trying to remember who it was attributed to, but it's like how rioting is the language of the unheard.
Yes. You could give it to MLK.
Okay.
And a lot of other people. He said it a couple of times himself.
Okay.
I'm a quoteaholic. Martin Luther King Jr. said it, and other people have said it. James Baldwin probably repeated it. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think Baldwin was one I heard from, but also Dr. King for sure. But if we're intentionally saying in these other places that we're going to ban the conversation or not have the conversation, you're now putting that group into the category of being unheard.
Exactly. Yeah. No, well said. Could not have been said any better than that. No, great.
But, that kind of takes me to something you and I kind of talked about briefly, public safety. Because if we are, that's just one aspect of it. But if we are willfully not listening to people, which now puts them in situations to where they have to figure out how to have their voice heard or how to have access, how does that impact public safety? Does that make sense? It
makes a lot of sense. So what I always say to people is when you talk public safety, if you had 20 people in the room, you would probably have 20 different conversations. And what I always say to people is that when we're talking public safety, people want to be safe, but they also want to feel safe.
Right.
And if you can have the conversation with them and say, we want you to be safe, but we're not going to be successful if you don't feel safe. You're not going to walk down Avenue D. You're not going to walk down 2nd Street if you're not feeling safe. So we have to have that conversation to say, we want you to be safe, but we want you to feel safe. So we're going to have different organizations that are going to probably say a lot of things about police officers, about whether we need more police officers, whether we don't need more police officers, or whether we need to train more police officers. And what my conversation with them is this. The worst thing in the world in a community is an untrained police force. So we're looking at a lot of things. I'm talking from a state level with regional training classes, getting more police officers on our streets, getting more community police officers out there. But we need them to be trained. We need to change the culture. And I say this all the time. One of the little signs that I have in my office in Olympia, and it says, culture eats strategy for breakfast. What I mean by that, it doesn't matter what the strategy is. If you have a culture of distrust, if you have a culture of corruption, it's going to eat that strategy. So we need to have these conversations with our men and women in police, in I call them peace officers now, but our peace officers that we have in our communities.
Yeah, that's such a valid point. I know people sometimes have asked me to, come in and facilitate a workshop or lead a conversation. And my first question to them is, well, what's your organizational culture? What are your values? What do you believe? Because I can come in and do the training, but along with wanting to tailor the training to what it is that they need or what they want, I want to make sure that it's something that's going to land. Because just like you're saying, we do these trainings. And it's like, oh, here we go. Here are these 2 hours. When I walk in, are people going to say, I'm here, I want this, and I'm engaged? And so it's so important to have that culture first.
It is. I went through a lot of different training, cultural training, and different things when I was in law enforcement. And there was no question about it. I recall walking in, even myself, I wanted to be out there arresting people, making traffic stops, doing the things that you were trained to do.
Right.
But at the end of the day, if we were at in-service training, doing the mandatory training, it really helped. I think it helped me. I know, and I've talked with other friends who are now retired, it helped us become better police officers. It helped us become better public servants, better guardians of the community, instead of going out there wanting to be that warrior. Maybe there was a person that probably could have been arrested, but maybe needed to be just simply taken to the store and given $3 to do this.
Right.
So even though the training at times was difficult, and you would watch people and you know how boring it was for some of them, but the fact that we did it made a difference, I believe.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think back to, again, being when I was teaching high school and a kid would come in with some very challenging behaviors and people are like, hey, well, he needs to go home or you can't be here. And it's like, okay, do we understand what happened at their home? Or, did they have breakfast this morning? What was their first encounter with someone when they came on campus? How do we support them in a positive manner that doesn't now put them into the justice system?
It's a great point. And that's why we're finding different ways to do public safety. That's why these conversations, public safety conversations, are making a huge difference. That's why when I go to the training, I go and observe the training academies and observe the arrest techniques. They're doing it in a different way. And it's because of, these conversations like this. And it's because of people saying we need to change the way we've done things, change the culture.
That would be something interesting to do, to go in and observe some of the classes at the academies.
I think you should. I have a direct contact for you. It's Director Monica Alexander. She runs the criminal justice.
Right. Okay.
You probably know she runs the Criminal Justice Training Commission down in Burien, and she and I have worked together to open a facility in Pasco and one in Vancouver, and we're looking to open a facility up here. But I'll bet she would love to have you come down and observe the way they train and maybe watch a class and find out how they do physical arrest. And it's not like some of the things you might have seen on TV.
Right.
It's really having 3 people deal with the person, maybe inviting them to go to their knees instead of the old way that we did it. So yeah, it would be good, I believe.
But yes, I think back to, I would say, just the importance of knowing what's going on in different settings. It'd be great to get in there and see the type of training that our officers are receiving. Because one of the things, when I started in this job, there were people who came to me and said, well, this organization doesn't do this, or no one cares about that, or there hasn't been any progress made. And then when I did my own research, it was like, well, no, here are some things that have changed. Here are some improvements that have happened. It's often the communication hasn't been there to create that awareness of what changes and what progress has been made.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And quite often it is about getting the message out, because, messaging matters. I believe sometimes if we if you had a negative message here and a positive message here, which one do you think is going to, probably people are going to talk about? And I've kind of been that way myself because, when you look at policing, for example, when you look at policing, we're out there. When I started, it was out, you were rewarded for making arrest. And sometimes we can say, how many crimes did we avoid by maybe going to the schools, having the school resource officer? Right. How many fights did we avoid? How many other things? Talk about those positive things. So we need to do the messaging. We need to do a better job of messaging the good stuff that we've done.
So one thing I take from that is the importance of looking at data differently.
Yep.
One of the struggles I had when I was teaching back to the behavior program, somebody came to me and said, you don't have any discipline referrals. It's like, no, I don't, because I handle things in-house. There were only 2 times I actually had to call security to my room for something in the 3 years that I was there. But the thing is, I lost my train of thought.
No, it's okay. I've been there many times. You're talking about discipline referrals and you not having any, and maybe the fact that you handle them in-house. And I was listening to an audio book the other day, and a guy pretty much said the same thing. He was saying that they had a school where they had a school resource officer, and other officers would go to some schools and end up making certain arrests. Well, they had no arrest at this school because when that kid stepped off the bus or stepped out of the car, that officer knew him. He could talk to the officer. He could go to the officer, and then they weren't dealing with arrest. Well, look at no arrest, no attorney's cost, no court cost, but they handled situations. Maybe they could have done a little bit more, but the officer handled those things in-house. Maybe told the kid, took him back home. And we can't always measure what's prevented, but a lot of things are prevented.
And that's what I was thinking about, in the sense of when people would look at my program and see that I didn't have a lot of discipline referrals, the next thought would be, oh, well, you don't need this additional support.
Yep.
And it's like, no, the additional support is why we're able to do the things that we're doing. So can we look at data in a different way to say, let's not just focus on, here's this high number of incidents and we have this great need. Can we now look at, here's where we've been and look at the reduction and try to keep that as our baseline?
Yeah, no,
yeah.
But I get your message, because a lot of times, when certain things happen, we get more FTE to do certain things, and because the numbers show this. But sometimes the numbers just simply show that the programs, policies, procedures you have in place are very, very successful. You're not having incidents happen like other people are dealing with. And are we always rewarded for that? Often we're not.
No.
But the self-satisfaction of knowing that you've made a huge difference in the lives of young people should matter.
Yeah, that is so important to think about what's rewarded and what's not, because, I didn't even know there was a problem because, nothing's going on, but it's not, things aren't happening because of what we're doing. So got a couple lighthearted questions as we begin to wrap up here. I mean, maybe we'll before we get light. So when I think about the work that you've done, the role that you currently serve in at the state level, what do you think people see when they see you?
What I hope they see, I can think about all of the things that, the different positions I've held in my life. I hope they see a caring person, a person who cares about his family, cares about his children and his grandchildren. And I hope that they see a person who's, maybe if somebody asks me, what's your favorite title? And that is father and grandfather, because that's what I'm most proud of. I'm proud of what my children are doing, proud of what my grandkids are doing. And so that's what I hope they see. I hope they see a person who really, 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 truly cares about the community. Because what they wouldn't see is they would not see that in me if people hadn't taken the time to to show me that they cared about me. Growing up in the difficult times in Louisiana, segregation, no money, went to school with no shoes on, picked cotton, sometimes before school started, and came home every day and picked cotton after school, chopped cotton. But there were people, those teachers who would drive those back roads and cared about us. So I hope they see a person who has a great amount of gratitude for what people did to help me get to where I am.
Yeah, and that shows through. I have to say, I know you're not seeing my notes here, But like when I was coming in this morning and I was thinking about the conversation, that was kind of, what I envisioned seeing you as a father, as a grandfather, as a friend, as a a thought partner. And so I see it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for all you do. Our final fun question I'll jump into here. If you had a theme song that played when you walked in the room, what would it be?
I hear so many songs, and you would get embarrassed if you got in my car because I crank the music up loud.
Me too.
And, if there's James Brown or Michael Jackson,
hey.
I feel really bad because I'm supposed to be this guy who's supposed to be listening to talk radio. But I loved We Are Family. We are family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can hum that, but I just love that song because when we get together in Louisiana, and I'm going back in a couple of weeks to take my kids through the back country where I was born and raised.
It's going to be hot.
We're going to play that. It's going to be hot, but we're going to play that at a big family picnic and telling everybody just to show up. Like I always tell people, show up, get your takeout tray, fill it with all you can take, and then get your plate, sit down and eat. And we're going to hum. We're going to sing that quite a bit.
That's a good one. Hey, thank you so much for this time today. I really appreciate you coming out here. And I just saw you recently at the Juneteenth event. That was just this weekend.
Yeah, it was Saturday over at Willis Tucker Park.
Yeah.
And then I went down yesterday to Auburn to speak at. They had a celebration, a Juneteenth celebration in Auburn at the biggest city park I've ever seen in my life in Auburn.
Okay. I haven't been down there for that
beautiful
one. I was at one in Index on my birthday.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. That was really good. I was really impressed with Index.
Well, I thank you for having me and thank you for all that you do. And, I'm happy that people are now recognizing what Juneteenth, really understanding the meaning of Juneteenth.
Right.
And so, it's going to take a while, but we're getting there. We just started celebrating it 2022. So we're going to get there.
Yeah. So I think some key takeaways from the day is, just that thought of everybody belongs and ensuring that everybody feels like they matter, that we focus on the good, not to, ignore the negative, but really try to put more good out into the world and not to fear change.
That's right.
Yeah.
We shouldn't.
No.
I still want to continue as often as I can convince people to really keep our focus on the good because, you're a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
We have generation after generation after generation following us.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking at us and thinking, this is who I can be. But do I want to be the negative, stinking thinking person that I see every day?
Yeah, don't be
Whether
that.
it be in politics, why not let a person see a positive person? Not everything is positive, but see the good that we can do and we can get out of this world.
Yeah. I love that you said that because what I have in our vision statement is to see ourselves authentically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Could not have been said any better.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Man, it's such an honor to know you and get to spend time with you and be able to share in the wisdom that you have to offer. Thank you as always for listening to the At Homish podcast, creating spaces where we belong. I'm seeing more and more merch popping up. When we had our event at the Carnegie, Breaking Bread, Breaking Barriers, had like folks in the red and in the pink with the new design, with the old design. Keep supporting, keep listening. And as always, when we wise up, we rise up. Peace out.